I'm muted. I'm muted. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. We're doing it live. Okay, so sorry about that. Today we're going to be watching a little bit of an older Kent Hovind video. This is from like right after he got out of jail. And it's a bit of an impromptu stream, so I'm making some mistakes already, but I felt like I should give you guys another piece of content before Christmas when I'm going to be a little bit more busy and probably won't be putting out a video. Um, so let's get into it.
Number one, do you believe that the only reason anyone argues in favor of evolution is because they want to get rid of God and have an excuse to live sinful lives? Oh, no, no, no. I've never said that. That's a major reason.
I've never said that, but that's a major reason why. Um, that seems like a bit of a contradiction, but I feel like this is not a very good question because, yeah, Kent Hovind says this, but he's just going to say that, oh, yeah, well, that's not the question is it the only reason? Not why do you say this, or can you back up this statement with some evidence, like statistics or polls from atheists? Just is this the only reason? And he's just going to say, oh, well, no, it's not the only reason, but it is true.
Some people argue for evolution because they really honestly believe it. They really do. I don't question that. Some of them argue for evolution because they hope there's no God to answer to, and as if, evolution's going to make him go away. But no,
Yeah, you said it yourself. If they don't want a God to exist, or they don't want to believe in God, or have God tell them what to do, how does believing in evolution make that go away?
some simply have never heard all they've ever heard. I spoke in Ukraine at a university there. There were 30 some professors in the room speaking through a translator into Russian. And one of the professors was crying. And I asked this lady translating for me, I said, "What's he crying about?" I talked for about an hour, hour and a half, I don't know, on creation. And she said, "He's never heard the creation story. He didn't know there was one. He wants you to keep going."
And then all of the professors stood up and applauded. Yeah, I find it really hard to believe that Kent Hovind would be speaking in front of 30 professors, and that his speech would bring them to tears unless somebody just had to listen to Hovind for an hour and a half and it drove them to tears. This is an old video of Kent. Apparently, after he got out of jail in 2015, he had some type of like cancerous uh, thing on his face, and he says, "Oh, I took vitamin B17, and I also went to the doctor and got therapy for it, but the B17 took it away. I only took vitamin B17 and went to the doctor and got therapy for it."
How many people have simply never heard the creation story? We get testimonies sent into our website by the hundreds, maybe thousands of people said, "Wow, when I heard the creation story presented clearly, it made so much more sense." Until then, they believed in evolution. That's all they'd ever been taught. And so, no, I don't think everybody believes in evolution because they want to get rid of God for sinful lives, but many do. And you know it, Tim. Okay. I'm reading your question here. I'm not asking, do some people argue for this reason? I'm asking, do you believe that's the only reason? I answered your question. No, it's not the only reason. Okay, number two.
There you go. Total waste of a question.
You say that organisms can change in small ways, microevolution, but never to the point where they would become a distinct kind, which is how creationists define macroevolution. Wouldn't that mean that God specifically and intentionally put arbitrary limits in how much animals could evolve?
Again, it's question is not worded very well, so uh, he's just going to harp on the word evolution and say, "Oh, well, it's you just want to make it sound like evolution." From I Heart Dogs, who is one of my patrons for $5. Thank you for the super chat, and Merry Christmas, Santa Claus emoji. Yes, I'm glad to see that the war on Christmas is not respected on this stream. You say Merry Christmas or you get out.
Well, you're trying to sneak that word in, evolve, aren't you, Tim? I understand. It's important to you. Um, Well, I think God designed all the creatures with a variety of adaptations they can make. There are rabbits that live in the cold climate and rabbits that live in the desert. Some have big ears to get rid of the heat, like the jackrabbit, use them like a radiator. I think that's pretty cool. And some have small ears and live up north in Alaska or Canada, and they have thicker fur and they have a shorter breeding cycle. And because of their differences, the Alaska rabbits cannot breed with the Arizona rabbits.
So that means they're not the same kind, according to your definition, because you say that once you have, if you want to know if two different animals, and these are different animals in this case, uh, are the same kind, you say, can they still bring forth? If not, they're not the same kind. So those things you just described, they're not just pretty cool, they're adaptations because an animal's phenotype is plastic to the environment. So that just means that the animals that have random mutations that lead to adaptations that assist in survival and reproduction are going to develop uh, things like the big flat ears you said, and they're going to radiate heat because that's evolution. Okay, a super chat from Regios for $5. Happy holidays, winking emoji. You are very offensive. That is not okay.
They're still a rabbit. So did God? Yes, God put limits. Obviously, are there limits on human size? Do you think we had some humans, 2 feet tall, and had some humans, 9 feet tall? Robert Wadlow, just in this century. Are we ever going to get a human 4,000 feet tall or a quarter inch tall? Of course, there are limits. Yeah, I believe God intentionally put limits.
Those limits aren't put in place by God, they're put in place by gravity. Unless you want to say that God is the one who created the universe and therefore created the laws of gravity, then uh, that's not a limit put in place by God. It's a totally arbitrary limit, not imposed by evolution either. It's imposed by gravity and the physics on the planet Earth. For one example, is you have animals that get pretty big on land, but they can get way bigger in the sea, like a blue whale. Well, that's because they're not under the strong effects of gravity underwater. It's almost like being weightless. So animals can grow to a way, way bigger size. That's just because of the way things are on Earth.
You say, I mean, God specifically and intentionally put arbitrary limitations on how much animals could evolve. You're desperate to get that word in there. God designed creatures to bring forth after their kind. That's all we've ever seen. It's still a rabbit. That's not evolution.
Your definition of kind is totally self-contradictory and inconsistent.
Why would he do that, you ask? I don't know. Why does Ford design a car, a frame that they can use to make a 2-door or 4-door or station wagon? Why don't they make the same frame work for airplanes or submarines? It's just call Ford and ask him. I don't know. Why would he say you can adapt to these environments but only so much? Well, I think that's common sense 101. Beetles can adapt to different things. They have a shell that can withstand, things trying to hit them or beat on them or bite them, but they can't withstand a sledgehammer or a blowtorch or dynamite. So what's that mean? Nobody made the beetle? Anyway, number 3. If you gave a definition of kind that you were completely confident was correct, and then somebody showed a proven example of an animal evolving into another kind, would you accept that macroevolution happens? Or would you just say that your definition of kind was wrong?
Neither. This is Kent Hovind we're talking about. Of course, he would never admit that his definition of kind was wrong. What Kent Hovind is always going to do, he did it earlier in this video, just on the last question. He's going to move the goalposts. With Kent Hovind, he doesn't just move the goalposts. Kent Hovind has the goalposts mounted to like uh, a set of motorized wheels, and he's got a remote control where he could just move the goalposts at will, depending on what question he's being asked.
I don't think anybody has a clear definition of species, that's for sure.
What does that have to do with the question at all?
I think the definition of kind, I don't know where I can point you to one other than most people understand there are different kinds of animals. I would think even you would agree, Tim, that birds are different than fish.
Yeah, because fish aren't dinosaurs.
I hope you would. No, never mind. You probably think they're the same. Anyway, um, so I don't. If somebody showed me, the question starts off with the if. It's one of these hypotheticals that you can go forever on those kind of things. Yeah, I think if someone said,
Kent Hovind absolutely will not entertain a hypothetical question. He hates them.
"Hey, this wolf and coyote can interbreed," and if somebody had classified them as different kind and then later proved that they're not the different kind, so what? That doesn't
So you would never admit it.
prove the big. You're missing the whole point. The big picture is all animals and plants bring forth after their kind. If you know, instead of saying
What is a kind? You just said that you don't know what the definition is.
asking me a question, if give me an example, give me the best example you got. By the way, Tim, when I talked to you on the phone a couple hours
Ring species. Any ring species.
ago, I said send me your 10 best questions. I'll be glad to deal with them, and I'm doing it. Okay, so if this is the best you got, I think you're 0 for 3.
If the questions are so bad, why don't you answer them?
Okay, number 4. If you were in charge, what dating method would you consider
If Hovind were in charge.
acceptable? You've expounded at great length about how deeply flawed carbon dating and other radiometric dating methods are. So what's your preferred alternative?
Great question. This is the first question so far that is absolutely a great question. Let's see how he dodges it.
Well, I think there's all kinds of ways to date things. We have historical methods. I mean, when did Abe Lincoln live? When was he shot? We have historical records in some case. We have eyewitnesses who wrote records. The further back you go, the more fuzzy things get.
The question is, what is your replacement for radiometric dating?
Like what do we know about Napoleon? Well, quite a bit. A lot of people wrote about him. What do we know about Napoleon's guy that lived 5 doors down the street? Probably nothing, because nobody wrote
Probably Hovind.
about him. So there's historical records. There are different ways of knowing the age of things. The further back you go, the fuzzier it gets, and there's always room for error to creep in. For instance, with the Egyptian calendar, where somebody's trying to make the pharaoh look good, so they leave out all their losses and only record their victories, or they exaggerate their age. This is King Pharaoh, he was the king for 400 years. So you got to be careful with exaggerations in any historical records, but certainly historical.
Oh, so the ancient Egyptians, they're known for exaggerating. So when they say that somebody lived to be 400 years old, that's exaggeration. But when the Bible says that the patriarchs lived to be over 900 years old, that's fact, and we should base the age of our Earth on it. Kent, the question was, what is your replacement for radiometric dating?
Is one way. Written records. If you find something in the ground, how would you date something? If you find a steel ball down in the ground, obviously man-made. First of all, how would you know it's man-made?
Answer the question.
I think it's pretty obvious in most cases when things are man-made. For instance, you shut this off here. When you dig through the pile of gravel and you find an arrowhead, you right away recognize, wow, man-made. Well, it's right next to a billion other rocks that are rocks, but everybody can recognize something that's created, designed, etc. Could you estimate the age of the Earth as a whole based on the genealogies in the Bible?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, you estimate. You could estimate. But that doesn't help with the dating of individual objects. Well, I guess it sort of does, yeah. When they find certain things in civilizations, as they're digging, excavating up civilizations, they can say, oh, this must be from the 18th dynasty of Egypt because it had this style of writing or something. We do that in English. We say, oh, this is when just reading, you can read a good historian can look at an English text and say, wow, this was probably written about the 1750s. Based
Kent, the question was, what is your replacement for radiometric dating?
on the words they use, or the style of writing, or the sentence grammar. Yeah, there are lots of different ways to try to examine those type of things. uh, I suppose historians would argue about the accuracy of some of those things. Uh, but yeah, but radiometric dating, none of that was even thought of till the 1940s and
So what?
50s. So how did they know the Earth was millions of years old before radioactive dating, Tim? I mean, they just made it up out of the clear blue sky with that stupid geologic column.
They knew because of geology. They knew because of things like the strata. They knew because of the heat of the Earth. Uh, Charles Lyell and people that lived around that time, they estimated that the Earth was very old. They didn't know that it was as old as we know now. The age increasingly got older and older the more scientific discoveries were made. But there were ways of telling before, but it doesn't matter because the question was, what's your replacement for these things? Not what was around, how did they know the Earth was old before them?
That's how they figured it out, which doesn't exist. All over the world, there are petrified trees standing up, connecting those layers. They're not different ages. So you guys that believe in evolution need to quit pretending about the dumb geologic column.
A geologic column does exist. There are multiple places all over the Earth where you can go and see it.
Uh, let's see. How would you tell someone to date, say, an archaeological find if all the established accepted methods of dating are thrown out? I didn't say all the established methods are thrown out. No, I just mentioned some. The historical method, the observational method. That's what historians do. They put together pieces of artifacts here and there and try to get us timeline. But all that goes back a few thousand years is all. And the further back you go, the fuzzier it gets and the harder it is to be accurate. And they all know that. That's why they start giving the plus or minus. Okay, you would have thrown out all of them if your age of the Earth is correct, because they all give results much older than 10,000 years. Now, wait a minute. All the archaeological finds give ages more than 10,000 years. So if I dig up a Sioux Indian civilization in South Dakota or someplace, it has to be over 10,000 years. How about 200 years?
Radiometric dating, Kent. You know you're lying right now, Kent Hovind. You know that's not what he meant. You know that's not what he meant, Kent. You are a liar. You are such a liar, Kent. He said that you just said that none of the dates work because they're based on assumptions and they weren't found until the 1940s and 50s.
Everything's older than 10,000. Tim, think about it. Okay, read your question number 4 and think about it. Okay, number 5. Another if question here, there was an animal that looked like a dog and was related to other dogs, but it had the ability to spend weeks at a time underwater without ever coming up for air. Would that count as a non-dog? That is a different kind. What kind of question is this?
Dude, just answer the question.
If a dog was able to jump over the moon, would that prove, it has springs in its legs?
Yeah, it's a ridiculous question, but the whole point of the question is getting you to define where the line is between dog and non-dog. It's still getting you to try and to define what does a kind mean. How can we tell two animals are not the same kind?
Try another question, Tim. Come on. If there's no such animal, there's no dog that can live underwater for weeks at a time. If do you know of one? I know there are dogs that love to swim in water, and there are dogs that love to chase birds, and there are different varieties of dogs. So what's the point? It's still a dog. And who's deciding what these species boundaries are anyway?
Why don't you tell us what the boundaries of dog and non-dog are?
Okay. Example, dog and a wolf and a coyote are 3 different species. They're still interfertile. They don't normally breed, I know, but they can. So you tell me, Tim, what is a kind or what is a species?
No, you tell me what is a kind. So between the dog, coyote, and wolf, what kind are they? Are they a dog kind?
me a clear definition of species that applies in all cases. If a dog underwater for weeks at a time. Okay, number 6. Even maybe this is why you got 7 fans.
Kent Hovind, everybody. What a class act.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Okay. Even if evolution were conclusively disproven, which it has not been. Well, Tim, you need to define the word evolution. Has not been disproven. I say there are 6 different meanings to the word. I've done it hundreds of times in my seminars. I think there is absolute. They don't have to disprove it. There's no evidence for it. Can you disprove that the moon is not green cheese 10 feet down under the crust? Well, do I have to disprove it to make it not true? I mean,
What he's saying is correct that evolution has not been disproven. But Kent, you've made this exact same argument about the Bible. You said, oh, well, the Bible has never been proven wrong. Or the age of the patriarchs being how you date the universe and the earth. Nobody's ever refuted that.
That's backwards logic there. And number 6. Even if evolution were conclusively disproven, which it has not been, and you could somehow rule out any possibility of another naturalistic explanation being found, what scientific evidence would you have that the world was intelligently designed by your God and not the God of some other religion?
Great question. This is a great question. This is the best question so far. Easily the best question so far. He can't answer this.
Good question, and I've said many times in my seminars. Step 1 is there a God? Now, step 2, which God? Is it Allah, Buddha, Jehovah? I've said that dozens of times on this program. That is the second level. But let's get over the first hurdle first. There had to be a designer. You find an arrowhead in a pile of gravel. Okay? The first hurdle you get over is this a naturally occurring object or is it man-made? And most everybody would agree this is man-made. Now, who made it? Was it the Sioux Indians or the Blackfoot or the Crows or something else? That gets into a different set of arguments. You are right. Okay?
Exactly. He has to admit he completely cannot answer this question. He's completely failed to address it. And you're conflating that with humans designing arrowheads is not at all the same thing as creating a universe.
No. Proving there is a God would not prove it is the God of the Bible. I agree. I think it is the God of the Bible. He's the one who claims to do it.
How pathetic is that? Okay, Muhammad claimed he was a prophet in the Quran. Does that make it true? You're literally admitting, oh well, I just think that my religion is true because it's my preferred religion. Hovind.
Have to have done it. Okay, number 7. William Paley had the famous saying about how someone seeing a watch on the ground would just know it was designed because of how intricate and complex it is.
Paley's watchmaker argument. Nice reference.
Right. If you find a watch on the sidewalk, nobody with half a brain would think it oozed up out of the sidewalk on a hot day. Everybody would say, wow, this is a designed object. If you find a single screw on the ground, you're going to say somebody made this. There isn't anybody going to say it's a naturally occurring object. You don't need the whole watch. A single nut or bolt or screw would do it. If William Paley said about the watch on the ground, you would know it was designed. Isn't it more true to say we know watches are designed because we can see people design watches? Now think about your logic here, Tim.
Excellent question.
There are all kinds.
Okay, we have another super chat for $5 from Regios. Kent isn't beyond a presupposition here and there. Yeah, Kent believes some of the presup arguments, but he is not able to make arguments that are that intellectual, like that thought provoking, even if they're totally wrong. Kent can't pull that kind of stuff. And Kent, anyway, the presuppers think that just by arguing in favor of the Bible being true, arguing against an atheist, you're already putting God, you're judging God, and the Bible says that God will not be put under the test. So they think it's wrong to even argue against atheists because that's admitting that the Bible might not be true. So I've heard Kent say that he doesn't agree with the presuppers.
Of ancient artifacts that are found from civilizations, things nobody uses anymore from ancient, Stone Age civilizations. And nobody ever saw anybody make one. What about the Easter Island statues? I don't think anybody's seen anybody make any of those.
But we've seen people carve statues before, Kent. You know this is a BS answer. You have to know that. We have seen people make statues, not those specific ones. No. It is almost incredible how Kent is able to dodge questions like that. It blows my mind.
Does that mean Nobody made them. We have to see somebody make one. Let's assume somebody.
Make one as in make one of many, not see one as in make that specific object, Kent, you bastard.
Don't crucify me on this one, but let's assume nobody's ever seen the Easter Island statues. Nobody has ever seen them made.
Don't crucify me because I'm like Jesus. Jesus, Hovind?
Still, we know somebody made them. Uh, that's a half a brain, one eye, simple project.
Yeah, if you have half a brain and one eye, then you can believe in creationism.
Yes, somebody designed the watch. We have seen people make watches. What's your point? Is this somehow evidence for evolution? Tim, think about it. Number 8.
The questions are for you, Kent. For you. Stacy, what have you done? What have you done?
You explain homologous structures. Homologous, homo means the same. Structures that have the same, they look similar or they serve the same function. Okay. You explain homologous structures by saying that it could just be evidence that those animals have the same designer. Yeah, that's a fair point. Chevy uses round tires, rubber tires on their car, and so does Ford, and so does Honda, and so does Suzuki. Whoa, that's proof they all evolved from a skateboard.
Whoa. Those aren't the same car company, though, so they're not the same designer, are they?
They've all got round and rubber tire. Some of them pneumatic, I mean like full of air. That's proof.
That doesn't prove that they're all designed by the same designer, though. Just because they all have tires with air in them, that doesn't prove that they had a common designer. They still had different designers. So this is a terrible argument and a terrible analogy, as usual.
No, it's a design that works. Hello. Yeah, God
Yeah, I didn't even realize that, but yeah, that's a great point.
designed animals, and certain animals need to move around, so he made legs or wings or arms. Okay, so what does that prove? It's a design that works. So he gave it to a bunch of them. A bunch of animals need to see where they're going, so he gave them eyes. Eyes are really complicated.
Well, there are animals that don't have good eyesight and can still tell where they're going, like ants or animals that have antennae. Why don't they have eyes?
So are ears.
Because they're too small. That's why.
So are a lot of things. Okay. So what's your explanation for why these mammals
Why these mammals, these hovandimals?
who live? Did I read your? I don't want to leave out any part of your question. Okay. So
I'm not going to answer your question, but I don't want to leave out any words.
what's your explanation for why there are mammals who live underwater when the designer could have just made them homologous to fish? Think about it. Just think for a minute. The designer can, first of all, dolphins and whales, some man decided they're mammals. Maybe in the biblical classification they're fish. Okay, I think we have
Well, that would just be wrong then.
evidence they are. One place says Jonah was swallowed by a whale. In the New Testament, Jesus said that. Old Testament said he's swallowed by a great fish.
So what's more likely? That the Bible has a contradiction in it, or that whales are actually fish?
So in the biblical classification system, a whale would be in the fish category, and I think to most 5-year-olds it would be too, unless they were told differently. Now we have decided because it breathes air, has hair, bears live young, nurses its young, it's in the mammal category. Okay, well you can divide it any way you want. It's an arbitrary set of conditions to meet the mammal category. So yes, there are mammals that live underwater, what we call mammals, and the designer could have designed them any way he wanted. Why did he design the dolphins and whales to swim underwater? I don't know. I think it's pretty cool though.
That's your answer? Oh, I don't know. I think it's pretty cool though. Hovind's pretty cool.
Why did he need to convert mammalian characteristics to aquatic life? Oh, no, he didn't. He created whales, 100% whales. They have a whole lot of parts that work together to make them a whale, and they couldn't gradually evolve from anything else without none of it working.
That's not how evolution works, dude. Uh, those different parts of the whale also make them a mammal. like their mammary glands, the fact that they bear live young, they feed their young with milk, uh, they have hair, they're warm-blooded, they breathe oxygen. Instead of having gills, they have lungs. So even, which is kind of crazy as a design, because they have to they have to go all the way to the surface to take in a huge breath, and then whales are literally holding their breath the entire time they're underwater, the same as a human does, just on a way more massive scale. That's kind of crazy as a design.
So, Tim, he did not convert mammalian characteristics to aquatic life when he could have just reused the parts from a fish. I think God used the same design in all kinds of things, but he did a lot of unique things too, just so people like you would have to scratch their head and say, wow, maybe there is a designer. Like, what did the platypus evolve from? What is even close to a duck-billed platypus?
Well, something that lays eggs. Um, yeah, why was it created? I mean, if you're going to answer a question with a question, then if you ask, how did that evolve? I'll just say, well, how was it created? Do you have evidence of that?
There are all kinds of creatures, like a seahorse swims in the upright position. The male hatches the eggs. What is similar to that? What is 90% seahorse? Or
Exactly. So why do you think that two animals that are very similar, like a gerbil and a hamster, or these two types of rabbits, oh, these animals have a similar design? That's because they have a common designer. But when an animal is very different from any other animal, like a platypus, you're still going to say that the platypus and the gerbil have a common designer.
80% seahorse, and it's just proof the designer's pretty smart. He made all kinds of things that are really amazing, and so we'd have something to study.
This just seems like a totally arbitrary ad hoc explanation.
There's people devote their lifetime to studying these different things and still don't understand them all. Okay, please try to answer specifically, not theologically. Well, that's the best I can do on
Too late. Too late.
that one. I guess I give a specific example: the seahorse, the dolphin. What did that evolve from? What is similar? 90% dolphin, or 80% dolphin, or 70%. Put together your chain and don't use any theoreticals. Just show me the scientific evidence to change from any kind of animal to any other kind of animal. What evidence do you have? Number 9. You've argued that Noah's flood provides the best explanation for the trillions of fossils we have in the world. Yes, I have, and I still do, and still will. Because burial needs to happen rapidly, as in a flood, for fossils to form. Yep, I stand my ground. Fossils do not form unless they're buried rapidly under specific conditions. Animals are being killed all over the world today by the thousands, and they're being dragged all over the woods by the scavengers, and they're not going to fossilize. I don't think you could point to any place on Earth where things are fossilized in any quantity without rapid burial.
Yes, you can. Because there are animals in swamps that die in swamps and fossilize. There are animals that sink into quicksand. I mean, I guess that's rapid burial, but still, there are conditions other than just a flood. And even just saying just rapid burial, why does it have to be a flood? Because you have animals that were covered in like mud in a mudslide or like a sand slide. They quickly get covered in material like sand or mud. They'll fossilize, but that's not a flood of water. And even if it is rapid burial from a flood, that still doesn't mean it's evidence of a global flood. And even if it's evidence of a flood that big, you still don't have evidence that that's from a god, and you still don't have evidence that's from your specific god.
If in water or mud, because the minerals have to replace the bone as it decays. So if you know of some place where they're forming, tell me. I would like to go visit it. You would agree that other smaller floods happen occasionally too, right? Yep. Lots of them all over the world. Floods all the time. I've been in several of them. Okay. I would agree. and probably have been happening throughout history. I would agree. I bet there's been floods all over the world and all through history. I agree, Tim. We're on board here. Quote, parentheses, starting after Noah's flood at the very least. Yes, I think I doubt there was any floods before that, but I think since Noah's flood, the worldwide flood, there have been thousands of local floods, depending on how you want to define flood. Okay. Would you agree that it's possible for some fossilization to occur in local floods as well? Yep, I would agree. It's possible for a local flood to do some fossilization. If the animals are buried quickly, I would agree that's possible. Now, if you accept that local floods can create fossils, then isn't that already an adequate enough explanation for how fossils form without adding the hypothesis of an incredible worldwide flood on top
Great question. This is another great question.
of it? No, Tim, because some of the layers that are obviously sediment borne, like limestone layers, are continent wide.
So what? Limestone is a terrible example to pick for a flood that happened in 1 year because limestone cannot form in 1 year. Limestone is formed from the shells of animals with calcium carbonate shells, like sea life, dying and then falling to the seafloor in massive numbers. And then those shells and other objects getting compressed into limestone. It takes way longer than 1 year.
Some go under the ocean and show up on another continent. These so-called geologic column, these layers of strata, are worldwide. How would you explain the limestone cliffs of England and the limestone layers over in France and Germany, one continuous layer? Is that a local flood that did that?
Even if they're continent wide, did he say that they're worldwide or they're continent wide? Which is it?
How would you explain the diatomaceous earth quarries in Lompoc, California that go clear down into Baja, Mexico, as far as I know? I mean, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of miles of thick layers of sediments.
Yeah, and the diatoms are just like the animals with the shells. You can't build up something in 1 year that's that huge.
You want to postulate a bunch of local floods to answer all of the fossils? Why not just one big one that did 95% of the fossils? Sure.
Because that's so much less likely. Because that's not using Occam's razor. Because you have to make so many assumptions. And again, even if you have a flood caused by a god, you still don't have evidence it's your god. I mean, that your evidence would have to just be, well, the Bible said it. Obviously, the Noachian flood was caused by the God of the Bible, but there are other religious texts and myths where you have a deity causing a flood.
Local floods can create strata. Happens very rapidly. Look at Mount St. Helens. Volcano blew the mud down into the valley, made a 600-foot pile of mud that had thousands of layers in it, and that all formed in a matter of weeks or days. So yeah, catastrophes happen, local floods happen. But I've said clearly, I think nearly all fossils came from Noah's flood. Now let me ask you a question, Tim. Why would you be against that idea?
I'm asking the questions here, Kent. You don't get to ask any questions.
2 Peter 3, Peter said, the scoffers in the last days are
Scoffers, Hovind.
willingly ignorant of the creation, the flood, and the coming judgment. They don't want to admit there was a flood because that's really pretty clear evidence God has authority to judge his creation. Is that really what you're trying to run from? The responsibility to answer to God? Because, Tim, I don't know if you know this or not, but you're going to be dead for an extremely long time.
I look forward to it.
You might want to pack a lunch for that trip. I don't want anybody to go to hell. I want everybody to come to heaven. And fortunately, God himself, who created us and designed us and gave us the ability to
shut up, Hovind. Designed us.
Reason and even talk about this. No other animals do this kind of stuff. Talk about disagreements like this. No other animals reason about where they came from or where they're going. None. No plants are out there talking about, who's your great-great-great-great-grandpa? Where are we going when we die? No, it doesn't happen. Man is uniquely different from every other kind of life form. We're the ones that are conscious, or used to be, of a God, a creator. And you're going to be dead one day, and I'd like you to come to heaven. Now, if you want to go to hell, that's your business. I'm just telling you, I, Kent Hovind, would like to see you get saved. Jesus.
And I would like to personally save you so I can add you to my list of converts, and I'll get a bigger reward when I go to heaven. Hovind.
Loves you. And, okay. Let's see. I do accept the idea that local floods can create fossils. Tim, you got me. Number 9, I agree. Number 10. The Answers in Genesis statement of faith has the following statement. Quote, by definition, no apparent, perceived, or claimed evidence in any field, including history and chronology, can be valid if it contradicts the scriptural record. End quote. Do you agree with this statement? By definition, can be valid. I've never made that statement. That's Answers in Genesis. I'm not connected with them in any way other than I think they produce a lot of good stuff and I sell it. And I know a lot of the guys that work there and I recommend them. But it's on the first reading at the surface it seems right, but I don't approach it that way. I don't say the Bible's true, therefore we have to twist any evidence to make it fit the Bible.
Yes, you absolutely do.
I've never done that.
Yet you've done it consistently throughout this entire video.
Show me any evidence that contradicts the Bible. How about that? Put the burden.
Kent, you just earlier in this video made the argument that you don't have to disprove something to show that it's wrong. You just said earlier that that was a bad argument for evolution, and now you're using it.
Proof on you, Tim. Since you want all the taxpayers to pay for your religion to be taught in the school system, the burden of proof is on you, not me. I'm not asking for the taxpayers to pay for my belief to be taught in the school system.
Yes, you are, and I've proved that before.
Guys like you are. So really, the burden of proof is squarely on you.
But that's not how burden of proof is decided.
But I'm not aware of any. Evidence that contradicts the Bible. If you got some, send it to me. You haven't so far. Okay. Do you agree with this statement? And if so, are you admitting no amount of evidence could ever change your mind? No.
It's exactly right.
Send some evidence. I tell you what, I'll change my mind. I'm telling you right now, I will change my mind if somebody can give me some demonstrable scientific evidence. I'd like to see it.
That is such a lie. That's the biggest lie he's told in this entire video.
I don't believe it exists, and
well, there you go. And you never will.
A lot of people have tried. Had 105 debates now, willing to do 1,000 more, but nobody will do it. So
maybe because it's obviously pointless, because you'll never admit, no matter how many people debate you, destroy you, and show you that there's evidence, you'll never admit that there is any evidence for evolution.
Yeah, I would change my mind in a heartbeat. If somebody said, hey, here's the evidence, and they could prove it and show me, yep, okay, you're right. I did on the end times issue. Somebody showed me the evidence. Oh, wow, okay, let's change.
Who cares?
Okay. Is there any point in anyone providing evidence if you're just going to ignore anything that doesn't fit your specific interpretation of the Bible? Oh, now that's a cheap shot, Tim, and you know it.
No, it's not.
There is no evidence, but if you think there is, don't talk about it. Provide it. Tell me.
There is no evidence, but I would change my mind if someone presented any evidence, but there is none. Okay.
I asked you on the phone, what's the evidence? You said, oh, there's just lots of it. I did a debate one time with...
No, he didn't. This never happened.
I forget who it was. I think it was the woman. I think it was Karen Bartelt. I don't remember. Where's the evidence for evolution? Oh, there's so much of it. Well, show me one. Well, there's just so much. Okay, well, show me one. Oh, there's just lots of it. Show me one.
I've seen your debate with Karen Bartelt, Kent. This exchange never happened.
They never do. They just talk about how much there is. Give me your best shot, Tim. You asked me, is there any point in anyone providing evidence? Okay, Tim, I'm challenging you right now on, what is this, the 25th?
There's no point. Hovind.
Of September. Send me your best 5 evidences for evolution above variations within the kind.
Oh, send me evidence for evolution except for this thing that's obvious evidence of evolution. Hovind.
Send them to Hannah. She got this to me right away. She'll get your file, and I'll go.
Her name is Anna or Anna, not Hannah. Hannah is not a name. It's either Hannah or Anna or Anna. There's no Hannah. That's not a thing.
I'll do a special program just for you again, Tim. Put you at the top of the list, and I got a long list of questions to ask. We bumped you to the top today. Whew. You should feel honored, right, Theo? This is a rare. I've never done this. You're the
That just shows how old this video really is. That this was when Theo was still at DAL.
first one, Tim. Okay, so we'll send you a medal someday.
I have to just say, if you've never watched Kent's really old videos, not necessarily just the seminars, but the ones that he made right when he got out of jail, it's a gold mine. There's some great moments in those videos. Some of them are really enjoyable. They're actually a lot better in terms of content than some of the crap he puts out now.
So I'm no, instead of saying, would you ignore it, send it to me and let's talk about it. What evidence do you have? Give me your best 5. Okay, number 11. I said send 10, 11. Okay. And here is a bonus just for fun. Evolutionists believe that birds evolved from reptiles. I know they do. That is so sad and so silly. But you're right, they do. Okay, so what's the creationist explanation for why various reptiles taste like chicken? Whoa, now he's got a good point there, Theodore. I can't argue with that one. I don't know. That's a good question. Since reptiles taste like chicken, that proves we all came from a rock, folks. Yep, you got it.
Okay. Oh, well, that's basically it. So, yeah, Kent pretty much didn't answer a single one, as far as I can tell. But thank you for watching this video. Thank you for the people here in the live stream. We've got 32 viewers right now. So thank you for the people watching, and thank you to the people who sent super chats. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below telling me what you thought, and if you'd like to support my content past just engaging with it, you can go to patreon.com/atheistjr and pledge as low as $1 per month. Okay, well, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.